Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Dear listener, friends, countrymen, thank you for listening to my podcast, Too Much Information, the Marty's Ulster podcast. Thank you very much to everyone who's been listening. You know, I expected nothing when we started this, and here we are. It's amazing. I'm really happy and impressed that people are following me on this storytelling journey, my musical career. And by the way, this story ends, and we get moving forward into new adventures in podcasting. We'll talk to some friends, we'll talk to some producers, we'll talk to some music people, we'll talk to hopefully some sports people, hopefully some other people who all share unique stories, and we can all have a good time with that. So please continue to send me mailbag questions. I've been getting a good response. We're going to be having a mailbag episode in a couple weeks. So here we go. Let's get started. Let's begin. In 2015, as I was telling you earlier, I had released some songs solo. I'd gone solo, but I was also a gigging musician, performing in a number of bands, working bands, cover bands, making money playing music, learning new songs, enjoying it. And as I was developing that toolbox, I felt like it was influencing how I was writing and making it easier for me to use different guitar sounds and tones, and the songwriting was getting better, and I was very happy about the actual playing and my musical abilities for the first time in a long time, and that's great. I felt like I was playing the best I'd ever played. Here's the thing. Up until that point in my life, I'm going to be brutally honest here. Everybody goes through challenges in life. Some people have severe illnesses. Some people have serious car accidents. Some people lose friends or family members that are close to them, and it's really hard. Some people have that at a really early age, and it changes their life forever. Some people have really, really difficult childhoods. Some people have really, really difficult adult life challenges. And up until that point in my life in 2015, honestly, I'd had a very good upbringing. I'd had a very good adult life, and I hadn't really experienced real trauma or pain up until that point. I never lost a family member that was close to me. The thing is, as you get older, to be honest, I'll be blunt, family ages, your parents age, and you kind of expect them to live forever as a child, right? Even as an adult, you expect them to be impermeable, if you want to say that. You expect them to be able to fight off anything, and you expect, in some ways, always for a miracle to occur if anyone gets sick. Maybe it's an entitlement. Maybe it's just a feeling that nothing bad will ever happen to me. But in March of 2015, I found out my mom had cancer, and all original music on hold. I had some commitments with some bands, and I still obviously was working full-time during the day, and my wife and I had a baby on the way, so all of this was happening all at once. And I put everything on hold musically, as far as writing is concerned and recording, because I decided I didn't think it was appropriate for the music that I was writing at the time for me to continue with it. I was still happy with some of the stuff I'd done in the past, solo. Obviously very happy with the stuff I'd done in Sweetheart, and I wasn't going to touch any of that, but certainly my solo path and my solo career shifted and changed, and we found out she was sick and she was in the hospital through chemo. My personal life spiraled out of control. Thankfully, I had the support of my wife and my family, and I was able to overcome some demons, but it took a lot. I'm thankfully sober now for almost 5 years, and my daughter is 4 years old, and our youngest daughter is now 8 months old, and I'm very happy about that. So I made it through, but in 2015, some major life changes happened, put my solo career on pause as a songwriter. So in 2015, our daughter was born. I stopped writing and recording, still playing in the Beatles band, and that brought me some joy and some income, which was nice. And then early 2016, that's when some really serious stuff happened. My dear sister Beth Ann was 2 years younger than me, and we had our ups and downs in our life, but she was a very good friend of mine, very close, and I kind of told her everything. When you know somebody as close as a sister or a brother, they know your journey, they know your deepest, darkest secrets, they know your family's history, they know every frame of context. And my sister was that for me, and my brother is too still today. But the thing about your sister or a close family member is that if you connect and you share life events and you share life stories, and you become closer. And somebody who challenges you, my sister challenged me. She was the kind of person who I would write a song and rush immediately to her to say, tell me what you think. And I would sit there with my lyric sheet and sit in front of her and say, hey, is this a good song or is this not a good song? And I did that up until January of 2016, still sending her demos and saying, hey, what do you think? And she would send me a one-line answer, yes or no, maybe. Or she'd say, yes, I really like that. She usually liked everything, but she sometimes would say, that's your best or that's not your best. But it was in January of 2016 that we found out she had a brain tumor. And immediately, because of what was going on with my mom, chemo, cancer, leukemia, I thought, this is nothing. This is just minor. What's going on with mom? My sister, don't get me wrong, she said the same thing. We thought, we're going to get through this. This is a minor thing. Don't worry, it's probably not cancer. It's not a big deal. We're going to have surgery, they'll remove it, and I'll move on with my life. And that was in January. Well, 30 days later, she had passed away from terminal brain cancer. And I kind of glazed this over, but I'll be honest with you, getting sober, my biggest champion and one of my confidants and somebody I was leaning on heavily was my sister at the time, because she had been going through some stuff too, and just small personal stuff, trying to, as simple as eat healthy and exercise, and just, I was at the time trying to do everything I could to just say, hey, you're doing great. You're doing fantastic. She'd recently got a great job that she'd worked for about a year, and I was really excited for her and her family. She had 2 small kids, and I was really excited for her and for our family to grow up with her family. And when I lost my sister, and this is a bit dark, but sitting in the hospital beside her bed, I didn't leave her. I physically left the hospital and went home, but I didn't emotionally leave her bedside for a good year. And it was really hard. Really, really hard. And so it shaped everything I do now creatively. Writing songs that are more honest, and writing songs that are more meaningful, and writing songs that are a bit more raw and open. It's not, I do it on purpose. I do it as therapy. I do it as something I need to do. I do it because I've always done it. Those are all reasons, but certainly writing songs with more honesty and more emotion and more truth has become part of my creative process. So 2016 is a bit of a blur. I was feeling pretty dark and things were challenging for me, but I had a lot of support, and I'm not going to minimize that in any way, because I honestly did, and not a lot of people do. And people who have gone through things like losing a family member, especially a close friend and family member, can probably attest to the fact that if you have good support systems, everything probably will be okay and you can get through it. I had that. A lot of people don't have that, and I feel for those people and I empathize for those people, and I now understand those people better, the people who don't have support, because I did, and I had the support of my wife and my family, and here we are today. So how this applies directly to songwriting is as follows. My sister was gone, my mom was sick, very sick still, and I'd been writing some songs just strumming on guitar, nothing serious, because I had a bit of time, and when I did, I usually would bring a guitar down, maybe play a few chords. And my usual method of writing is I don't practice guitar. Instead, I bring the guitar out as a tool to write songs, and that's honest. I don't sit down every day and learn 12 new songs or 1 new song like a lot of people do. And I use the instrument as a device to express creative feelings, and that's what I had been doing. I've been doing my whole life. And so I pulled the guitar down off the wall a few times, and I had a couple of really rough ideas. One of which was this song that it was like a lullaby that I felt was like, let's get out of here. Let's get in a ship and fly away. And as the song developed, I really liked the chords, and I really liked the vibe of the song. I really liked the idea of a children's lullaby as the basics of a song, but then on top of it add deeper meaning, and that's where this song Moon came from. And I felt like that this particular song was a new direction for me, and I wanted it to be something different, and if I was going to record it, I wanted it to have more instrumentation. I wanted it to have a more deep meaning, and deep meaning creatively and a deep meaning emotionally. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to play you a demo of that song. It's called Moon. Eventually, I recorded it on my album that's out now, my solo relaunch album called The Dragonfly and the Spider. So let's play that now, this demo. Tell me what you think. It's rough, but this is how I write. I record a basic idea, and I sing over it, and then I maybe throw it to a few friends, see how they think, what they think, come back to it, make some changes, and then send it out again, and then get more feedback, get it to a place where it could be recorded, and here it is. Let's go.
Airship is ready. Where will we fly? Into the sky, just you and I. The clouds float like feathers as we begin to climb. Heaven is on my mind, at least half the time. And I will love you too. To the moon, to the moon, and back to the sun. The sunset is burning, we have almost arrived. Heaven is on my mind, for just you and I. The temperature's rising, gravity pulls our flight into the sun so wide, moving through space and time. and I will love you to the moon, to the moon, to the moon, back to the sun, back to the sun, back to the sun. Back to the sun, back to the sun, back to the sun. Airship is ready, where will we fly? Into the sky. Just you and I, and I will love you to the moon, to the moon, to the moon, back to the sun. Back to the sun, back to the sun, back to the sun, back to the sun, back to the sun.
So that song Moon was the starting of a new recording. I felt like it was the starting of a new chapter. I thought it was the starting of a new process of maybe even healing from dealing with extreme grief, which grief is like an anchor. Man, it weighs you down. That anchor can get lighter over time, but you have to face it. You have to face your grief, and I did, but it took a long time, and thankfully I'm here today. But what it did is I channeled some of that grief and some of those feelings into music, which as a songwriter, I mean, everybody knows stories about, you know, you write songs in bad times. You write songs in good times too, though. That's what they don't tell you. And you can write some really good songs even if you're not going through anything. You can just write some songs if you're inspired by the trees and the sky and the birds, you know. So Moon was the sort of spark for a new record and a new direction musically. I went onto my social media, and I erased everything. I deleted it all with the idea I would start completely from scratch, ground up. I have an old friend named JP Maurice, who I've known from Vancouver Island, from Victoria days, way back, and he had recently moved to Vancouver and was producing music and had this new studio called Blue Light Studios. And he posted on Facebook, I'm looking for, does any bands want to come into studio and start recording with me? And I responded with, I think, an emoji with a, you know, the hand up emoji. And so then we got talking and he said, yeah, let's do a few songs. What do you want to do? And I said, well, let's do 4 or maybe 3 or 2, or what do you think? And so he emailed ideas back and forth, some ideas I had, including the song Moon that you just heard. And so we went into studio and started tracking some ideas, and Moon was one that he really liked the ideas, and he saw the vision of like a Beatlesque kind of quiet pop song with lots of instruments and layers, and that's what him and I connect on, is the Beatles and their methods. And so here we go, you know, it was moving forward, and I was able to, while in studio recording the vocals for Moon, have my friend Dom Frico, singer-songwriter, show up and sing background vocals, and I was really excited about that. And then I have a friend who was a harp player, Camille, who showed up one day with her beautiful harp and put on the parts that you hear when you hear this podcast. That's her playing, and it sounds beautiful. And so I put the record together, and as a tribute to my mom and sister. So I wasn't sure what I wanted to call it, and I threw millions of names around in my head and realized that the name was staring me in the face. My mom and sister both had tattoos. They both got them on the same day, and my mom got a dragonfly. Her favorite, I call it spirit animal, was the dragonfly. She had a real connection with Aboriginal art and culture. She was a spiritual lady, a God-fearing lady, but she also really connected with young children who are First Nations and Aboriginal of Canadians. And I think something about the dragonfly, the story of this dragonfly and the meaning behind it really spoke to her. And she got a tattoo I think she was 50 or something. It was just ridiculous, and we laughed at her. But my sister got one too the same day, of a spider. And I don't know if she did it on purpose or not, but the story of the spider in First Nations culture has a very deep, strong meaning too. And so they both got these tattoos. And that's what I wanted to call it, the Dragonfly and the Spider, my mom and my sister. And dedicate the album to them because they helped me helped me creatively move through into a new chapter of songwriting and into a new chapter of creativity and honesty in music and truth in music. And I wouldn't have found that without them. So I give them all of my love and kudos for helping me. I'm going to play another song off of this record. It's called How Could I? And again, this one was started with just a few chords and a very rough sketch of an idea, but I played it for JP and he really liked it. The song lyrics are very meaningful to me because I wrote them directly about singing to my sister, if you will. Remember the island lost in the sun. I mean, the island lost in the sun is straight back to the Manitoulin when we were just young kids and we didn't have a care in the world other than riding our bikes down to the lake. So that's what that lyric is about. And How Could I Live Without You is on the nose, but it's very obvious what it's about if you know it's about my sister. But it could be about you too. I mean, it doesn't have to just be about me and my struggles and my grief and missing someone deeply, but it could be about you. How Could I Live Without You? Harry Nilsson has a song with almost the same sentiment, and it's a love song. And this song is the same. I mean, it's a love song for a family member and friend. So you can listen to it and maybe get the same feelings that I got out of it when I started writing it, and hopefully you like it. And this is How Could I, from my record, The Dragonfly and the Spider, produced by JP Maurice. My dear grandfather, aged 101, almost 102, passed away. And to lose your sister, and then to lose your mom, and then to lose your grandfather, you would think all of those things would be terrible and hard to deal with. And yes, it was. But one thing I'll say about my grandfather is that I felt like when he passed away, it wasn't sad, it was happy, because he wanted to go and he wanted to leave this earth. He'd spent a lot of time here and he'd seen a lot happen in the world, and he was ready. And I think that something about him being ready to pass on made it easier to start moving forward through grief. I mean, I took the train to work for 6 months in tears on the way there and back, just doing my best to hold it together, and when my grandfather passed away, I'm named after him, by the way, Martin Zalstra. When he died, I felt like that was the beginning of the end. The beginning of moving through grief, finally, after a long, long period of time. A battle with it. Not that you battle with it, but you battle with life, because you don't want to do anything. You want to sit there and hold on to it. You don't want to let it go, because you feel like if you let go of grief, you let go of the person that you're grieving for. And so I went to his funeral. We flew out to Toronto, my brother and I, and went to the funeral. It was a beautiful funeral, over 100 people there. Most people were happy. It was a celebration, a true celebration of life for this man who had 15 grandchildren, and it was easy to celebrate his life and then hear these stories I'd never heard before from my uncles and my dad. And I took each one of these stories, and when I got home, I kind of sketched the ideas out in verses, and I was like, this is a song right away. I thought of that. And so that's what I did. I sat down with the guitar and started to read my notes and hit record, so I would capture it all so I wouldn't forget. And that became Gypsy Girl / Martinez, which was my grandfather's name, Martinez. It's amazing. I think I kept nearly that whole arrangement the same, nearly, when I recorded it. And I recorded it with a friend, Claude LaForest at Maximus Sound. And we just did the one song, and I added a few touches to it. Matt LaForest played drums on it, and extremely minimal drums. Claude mixed it really beautifully, just really, really simple. And it turned out really well, and it came together so quickly that I felt like it had to be on the record because it fit. So it did. We put it on there. JP really liked it too. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to play you the song. So here we go with Gypsy Girl Martinez. And what I want to do at the end is talk about it a little bit more.
Down by the river, that's when I first saw her. In the heat of summer, that's when I first saw her. Her brown eyes shone like stars. She danced and shook my heart. Her light broke through the dark. The light broke through my heart. She was a shooting star. The horse was so untamed, regal, it held high its mane. My head held high that day. Pierced the night. She laughed her teeth so wide. The light broke through the dark. The light broke through my heart. She was a shooting star. Skates were sharpened, the cold wind blowing, 100 miles of people cheering, her blue eyes lit the sky. I cried and watched her die. Last breath she said goodbye. of gardens, flowers go, and I would go home to meet my Lord. Brown eyes shone like stars. She danced and shook my heart. Her light broke through the dark. Her light broke through my heart. She was a shooting star. She was a shooting.
So that's Gypsy Girl Martinez, a song I wrote start to finish in about the amount of time it took you to listen to that song. It was very quick and easy, and when a song comes to you like that as a songwriter, it holds more special meaning, I think, because it means that it was meant to be. It didn't come from it didn't I don't feel like it came from me. I feel like it flowed through me, if that means anything. But each verse is a story in my grandfather's life, and I wanted to tell you about that a little bit, not too much time. But the first story is that I'd never heard before, is of him being 10 or 11, and there being a houseboat on the river where there was a young girl who he was taken by as a young man. And I was like, this kind of love story that I'd never heard, young love, call it. And so I took that story and turned it into the first verse about this gypsy girl. And then his life also had a couple of other interesting stories that I'd heard before, but not in detail. And one was when he was in the Dutch militia, he was in charge of the captain's horse. And so he would groom the horse and feed the horse and take care of this horse. And it was really important to him. And he was a farmer at heart, and he had a farm most of his life when he moved to Canada. So this horse meant a lot to him at the time because of what was going on in Holland at the time. It was very difficult. It was the late 30s, Europe, and you and I both know what happened. But here he was with this responsibility that he was very proud of. And there's a very famous family photo. It's not famous to you, it's famous to me, of him on the horse, and that meant a lot to him. He kept that photo for his whole life in his living room. So there we go. And then the third verse is about another interesting story. There in Holland, the river only freezes over once every 10 years or something. And when it does, the entire country shuts down and they have a race. It's a 100-mile race. You get on your skates and you race it. It's not a real race. Nobody wins. It's just you go out and do it. And so he got a chance to do this, and he skated it. And I didn't know much about the race or much about the pastime or how unique it was or how rare it was. It didn't happen very often. It probably happened more back then in the 20s and 30s than nowadays in Holland, kind of since climate change took over our lives. But back then it happened every few years or every 8 years or 10 years or so. And so the river froze over and he skated it, and he finished, and he talked about that as an experience he literally never forgot. So there we go. But that song is a tribute to him and a tribute to his life and what he contributed to me in my life, which is number one, my name, and number two, a large family of people who originated in Holland. And I think about him and what he had to go through to get here to Canada as being very difficult, and something that maybe me or my children or my generation, future generations, will never really understand. And so it's really interesting and fascinating, and I thank him for it, and I thank my dad and my uncles for telling me those stories. So there we go, The Dragonfly and the Spider. Those are the stories about that album. Thank you for listening to it. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to see if I can get my friend Camille, who played harp on my record and is a multi-instrumentalist. She plays bass, she plays keyboards and harp. I'm going to get her on the phone, and maybe she can teach us all a bit of French. What do you think? Let's do this. All right, let's call her and see if we can get her on the phone. I'm calling her now. It's ringing. That's a good sign. Welcome to my podcast.
Oh my goodness, this is kind of scary. I kind of sound like a Muppet sometimes, so over the phone that might not even work. You tell me.
I love the Muppets.
Okay, I like the Muppets too.
Which Muppet would you be?
I have been called Beaker many times in the past.
No way.
Yep. Although I would like to be, I don't know, I think I'd like to be Janet. She's cool.
Janet is cool. She's a really cool bass player, man.
Yeah.
I think I would be probably Kermit or Fozzie. I probably want to be Kermit, but people would tell me I'm Fozzie because of the dad jokes.
Okay, I can see that. I can see like a nice mix of the two.
Thank you. Waka waka. So the reason I wanted you on my podcast is this week's episode 6, is about your my record that you played on.
And I have to say that I am very honored to start your podcast with my glissando.
Right? And end. You end it and begin it, yeah.
That's true. I'm very honored about that. And I love listening to your stories about your career as well.
Thank you. Yeah, well, I wanted to have you on because I wanted to talk about harp playing and everything you've done musically as well and what you're doing now. So why don't you tell me when you started playing harp?
Oh, well, if you want to know the long story short, I saw a harp when I was 7, and it was kind of, like this visceral reaction, like, oh, this is what I got to do. And I asked my parents, and they said no, because, I told them piano, they probably would have said yes, but harp, they're like, what the hell?
And I see photos of you with Stevie Wonder at a music. What was that at? I forget. What was that?
Okay, so sometimes you see something you want and you go get it.
Yes.
So I've always wanted to go to the NAMM show,
yeah,
which is a trade show for the music instrument business. And I found out one of my friends was going with a friend's company, so I kind of bugged them, and I'm like, I'll fly there on my own dime. I will work for you for free. Please let me be at NAMM. So he's like, okay. So I ended up, that was maybe 7 years ago now?
Yeah.
6 or 7 years ago, I ended up at NAMM for this booth, like a different thing that I knew nothing about, but I was kind of like the Muppet, like, yeah, everybody, come to the booth. And while I was on my time off at NAMM, I went to this booth by Reese Harps, which also makes harpsichord harps, which I use because they're nice, portable, colorful harps, and I love them a lot. So I went to their booth, and I started playing the instrument and entertaining everybody and talking with people, and I basically worked their booth. So they're like, hey, do you want to come at our booth next year? And I'm like, sure thing. So for about 4 years, I was the demo lady at their booth. And Stevie Wonder always kind of does the rounds at NAMM. And I saw him and his entourage kind of far away. And that's the power of the glissando. Because I thought, you know what? If I play glissando loud enough, he's going to come to the booth. So I went to the very edge of the booth, and I was like, brrr, and super glissando. And then I saw his face turn around. And sure enough, within 15 seconds, he was at my booth with the entire entourage. And I ended up talking to him about harp, and then he played a little bit. He can play anything, really. And we became friends with the Reese Harps, which are amazing people and great harp makers. And they ended up making harp for him and his granddaughter and stuff like that. So it was all of that. See, I answered your question way too much, right?
No, that was a great story. What's crazy about talking to you is I know you and I could talk for hours. That's the great part about it. And so that's why I wanted to have you as a guest here on my podcast. Now, do you perform as a harpist around town, or what have you done that's interesting? Tell me about a couple of gigs that are memorable.
Oh, I don't know if that's interesting, but what I usually do, I've only really performed once with my solo original material when I did my first album release.
Yep.
But I played at care homes, which I don't do right now for obvious reasons with the coronavirus situation.
Right.
I played with you with the Beatles tribute band, which were amazing gigs. We got to play Sgt. Pepper, so I did She's Leaving Home. And then I played harp on Good Night, when we did the White Album.
You did, yeah. You played a lot.
Awesome.
You played a lot with us, and I really like that. I like that you played at care homes. What's that like? How do people respond?
Oh, it depends. In general, it's very nice, very positive. I think the best and the worst moments is when I play for dementia patients. So I've had really incredible moments with them, remembering things, starting to dance, wanting to really communicate. And I've also had people sit on me, so it really depends. There was a time where I did a training to do harp for palliative care, but I don't think I'm strong enough to do that, at least not yet in my life. But there's so many things you can do with an instrument, especially with a harp that touches a lot of people. That's
incredible. The palliative care thing would be really tough. I mean, on that note, my record that you play on is kind of built on grief in a way. It is built on my own personal grief, but then and that's how the songs were written. But then I was lucky to have you and JP make these songs into something I think a little bit brighter. Otherwise, it would have been really dark. But I think that palliative care would be almost impossible for most musicians. So that's incredible that you did that.
Well, I think because I don't have a training in actual music therapy, and music therapists go to a proper training. So I have the utmost admiration for people who do that as a living, because I don't think I could do that.
No, it's really...
That record is so amazing. Because you can hear the brightness, but you can also hear the darkness. It's like the first flowers after the rain and the snow of winter, almost.
Yeah, my record does have those elements, you're right. And most people, when they hear Moon as an example, wouldn't think that song is about, losing your mom to cancer and wanting to take her away from that pain. But that's what it's about. Mm-hmm. Most people would think maybe it's just a sweet love song or a childlike dream or something. And the great thing about what you added to that song specifically is that you added this other sort of beautiful element, not only the glissando at the beginning, but also the sort of rhythm parts throughout the song, which I like. Harp's like a piano, right? Harp has like interesting EQs in the high notes that you wouldn't get on a guitar or a piano. What do you think?
There's so many sounds that come out of that instrument, wherever you like it, whatever you do with it. It's like some people explore that way better than I do, but it's really an amazing instrument. If I say so myself.
Well, of course, and I think it's more versatile than I personally thought, based only on that one recording project. But do you think it's more versatile than maybe people think, or what do you think about that?
Oh yeah, I think there's just, how to say, if there is a prejudice in that it can be good and bad when you hear harp, in that some people, it's like you're conditioned to think that it's relaxing.
Right.
So you can write something that to you will sound really dark, kind of like what you were talking about with your song Moon, that you write something which to you has a darker meaning, and people listen to it and like, oh, it's so relaxing. And you're like, you know what, if that's what you take of it, great. But I think there's some kind of a prejudice with harp that people just hear it as this beautiful, nice, relaxing thing, where really it takes you elsewhere as well. Some people are so good at doing different sounds, mixing harp with all kinds of different beats and singing, and the possibilities, it's like piano, the possibilities are kind of endless.
Yeah, it's a beautiful instrument. I think it's I learned a lot about that instrument from you, so I thank you for that. I would never have thought of harp as being something I was as fascinated by, but one thing I'll ask you, tell me about, because here's the thing, as you know, I've been playing your albums for our little one.
I've been playing your album too.
Well, you've been playing mine, but I've been playing yours, both of your records, a lot for our little one, trying to teach her. If she can't sleep now, I play it, but when she was a newborn, I would play it every night for her. I was wondering, you talk about that first record as being dark. Tell me about it.
Well, to me it is, right? So, again, if it helps children fall asleep, that makes me happy. I have some friends that say, I do yoga to this. I'm like, this is great. But that first album is really born from a feeling of being away from people you love for a long period of time, because I moved here about 15 years ago. And pretty much all the songs are kind of about that, but not. It's almost like it goes from the first song, which was just like a studio improv, but it's about saying goodbye to loved one. And then the very last piece, which I call Tell It to the Wind, it's also about, basically I say tell it to the wind because I feel that the wind can carry the messages I want to send to my loved one if I say it to the wind, because it goes all around the world.
Beautiful.
But I tried to describe with music the nature of BC, with because I was on an island, I was hearing woodpeckers, it was knock knock, so I added some knocking, I added some little blues for the bees and the hummingbirds, I added some bird sounds in there, trying to with the harp. And, you try to do all these sounds and you realize that, especially when you don't put any lyric to your music, people, they take it differently, right? So you'll have someone who will be like, oh, this is so great for relaxation, and someone else who will be like, oh, this is actually it comes from a feeling of unease, which to me is what it was.
The more I listened to both of the albums, what I found is I sense that sense of unease in the first EP. I really get that from those songs. I really can. I think now more than ever, after listening to your recordings, like literally every day for about 2 months.
You're not too sick of it yet?
No, I'm not. I don't, because I hear new things, and that's the great. Again, coming back to the harp itself, it's an instrument with how many strings does your harp have? 20?
Well, depends. The one that you know, and the one that I recorded the most of the first album on has 34.
So 34.
But if you think, it can go up to 47 for a concert grand pedal harp, but I can't afford pedal harp, so I just play live harp.
Well, hopefully we can get you one to try out and record on another record of mine one day. But the one thing I'll say about that instrument, because there's so many strings, it's almost like you hear something new in the recording every time you listen to it, because there's a lot to hear. It's a really, I don't know, the spectrum, the musical spectrum is really wide, especially in the higher frequencies, which is really makes it stand out. Probably fairly difficult to record too.
I don't know recording things, but I know that there's a lot of different like frequencies, or how does it call, sympathetic resonance throughout.
Yes.
I wish that I could record from my point of view, because every time I listen to a recording, it doesn't sound like what I hear, since I have the ear, like you lean it on yourself when you play, right? So it resonates through my body. So
Right.
I will hear the lower much more. The highs, I hear them close to my ear. So I wish I could somehow convey that one day in a recording, exactly like the experience of playing the harp.
Well, let's get JP together and we'll figure that out, hopefully. Do you have plans to do any future recordings? Because those two albums are just absolutely fantastic, and we'll make sure our listeners listen to them. If you're putting babies to bed, if you're doing yoga, if you're having coffee in the morning, or you just want to relax, but also if you want to feel something, obviously you listen to these albums. But do you have a plan to record in the future?
You're so kind. Thank you so much. Well, I do. This year there's just one tune that I want to put out. I have a friend of mine, her name is Brandy Chippendale. She is an amazing painter. And a couple years ago, she gave me a painting of hers. I went to a studio and I saw a beautiful painting, but that's very also like a bit more on the darker side. Oh, it's always on the darker side, isn't it? But it's kind of a moon over, I would say, a distraught sea in a way, with very vibrant colors. And she painted that when she was recovering from a double concussion, so she almost didn't recognize her painting style for a while. And when I saw it, I thought, I want to write a piece for that.
That's
and
incredible.
So she gave me the painting. And it's been in my music for 2 years, and I finally wrote the tune. So I would like to record it, but I don't. I wrote it in different, like, weird odd time signatures. I don't know if people will like it, but I like it, and I hope my friend will like it. That's kind of the important thing. So that's the only thing I'm planning this year, but hopefully next year I'll have another album out.
I would love to hear that song. The good thing about your music, I mean, what I take away from it is that you're absolutely right. If there's no lyrics in an instrumental piece, what the listener takes away is their own feelings in some ways. But the more you listen to it, I think the deeper you get into it, and then the more you understand where the writer was coming from. I think like Beethoven or Bach or Mozart has been written about to death, but you, listening to your music, it's interesting because I don't have the frame of reference until talking to you about it in detail. So it's nice to know that I get the same sense that of what your music is intended from what you're telling me, basically. So I'm happy that I kind of figured it out a little bit anyway.
Yay! Thank you. Well, if I did shows that, or like if I did tours or whatever, and I would play my own music, I think I would explain everything before I did them, kind of like I did when I did my one concert. But yeah, because sometimes if you don't know what to listen for, and you're just kind of assume people are going to listen for it, well, just help people a little bit,
That's a great perspective, and it's interesting that you say that you need to describe what the song means before you play it, because I do feel that today, talking about this album with people and yourself, I think what it does is it describes at least my frame of reference, and what the listener to actually listen to while they're listening to the song is important, especially as a writer. You want people to focus on that thing that you feel sparked the idea to begin with, right?
Yes, and I'm really glad that I know the backstory to your album as well, right? Because I would hear it differently if I didn't. It would still be very amazing to me because it's one of my favorite albums, and I listen to it at least 50 times, at least.
Wow, that's incredible.
I keep listening to it when it came out, I listened to it, I would say at least once a day, at least.
Wow.
And I still listen to it regularly on rotation. I think I know all the songs by heart.
Well, and the funny thing with when I send new song ideas to you, you always tell me that you don't like it when the note ends. Is it on the 7th? What is it? What's the note?
Oh my goodness. It's like this weird quirk that I have. I'm so sorry. That happened with one tune that you sent me, which is probably a great tune, but I can't assess it. I have a weird quirk where if it's a song in minor and you hold the 7th, like that has been raised, I don't know if it makes any sense, but anyway, I cannot. I have this weird movement inside of me that just will reject it, and I don't know why. It is very strange. So it has nothing to do with the writer. It's just how I feel.
Listen carefully, folks. Do not hold the 7th on a minor when it's raised in a song.
You're not mad at me about that, are you? You're mad at me.
I'm not. I think it's awesome. It's something that there are little quirks.
It's random. I know it's random.
I have things like that about songs that I don't like either, like little things like I don't like vocal gymnastics. I do appreciate that when a singer can perform gymnastics with their voice, but if it doesn't serve the song, sometimes I get it's a little grating, but only for me. So there you go. There's my pet peeve.
Everybody has these things. At least every musician that I know, I think there's a couple things that you just can't deal with it. And it doesn't mean that it's not good. It just means that for you, for some reason, it doesn't work. So I probably will not write that myself. But it doesn't mean that it's not good or not valid.
Oh, yeah. And obviously people out there will listen to an artist like Whitney Houston or Christina Aguilera, let's say, with their vocal gymnastics. But I personally do not listen to that kind of music generally. And the same thing with you. You're not going to listen to a ton of, I don't know, who has a band that I'm really influenced by is a French band from Montreal called The Stills.
Are they the one that did the Still in Love song?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. That was a while ago. I love that song.
Yeah, and that song doesn't have the seventh off of the minor.
It does not.
But some of their later albums, they hang on the seventh a lot, which I really like. I like resolving on a seventh is interesting, and listeners will have to go back and listen to the Stills and figure out what we're talking about. But
well, it's a good ear candy for people who like it, because it's like a hook. It's very interesting for people.
I love it. Personally, I like that, and I employ that in a lot of my sort of song ideas, but sometimes I don't get to use it, and JP will cancel me on some of those ideas sometimes. But I'm excited for you to hear my new record.
I am so excited too.
I heard now.
When does it come out? Tell me all about it.
Sometime soon, hopefully. But I was thinking about you because I heard a new mix of a song, "Sweet California," which you really liked.
Yes, I love this song.
It's
one of my favorite video clips of all time is us jamming to that and cracking up.
It's good.
This exists somewhere on one of my phones. One of my phones. I mean, I changed my phone recently.
Good for you. I think that would be. I think you'll be happy with that one because it's really fluffy and it's got a lot of harmonies in it.
I will find my way back home. That one.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah.
And the other thing I wanted to ask you before I let you go, because you probably have stuff to do. What you're not just a harpist. You play piano, you play bass, you play guitar. Tell me about other projects you're in and what you're doing once this whole COVID-19 thing ends. What are you up to in the future here?
Oh, well, I wouldn't go as far as saying that I play piano. I kind of play keyboard.
Yeah.
I don't do that very often. I did that last for you.
Right.
But I love playing bass and just jumping around. So I am in a pop punk band called Reckless Beach. We were going to record. That's been put on hold, obviously. So I think, and we have a few shows lined up. So I think that will continue once the COVID-19 situation resolves. And I think I would really love to have a harp project, but with someone. I don't know. I'm thinking about things right now because when I write solo music, I always write stuff that could be, I guess, boring, just like instrumental harp. But I feel like that's what I like to listen to. So that's what comes out of me anyway. But if I were to collaborate as a duet or as a trio with a band or something, I feel like I could actually explore different possibilities of the instrument, and I wouldn't feel so tied up to my own music. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
that's
cool.
something that I'm thinking about.
Well, I know that you and I are going to record again and perform again together because once this whole self-isolation thing is over with, I think one thing I've gotten out of it is I do miss performing more than I kind of thought I did. You take it for granted when you do it a lot, but I'm hoping that we can get together and at least record some songs because I know that your harping sounds so wonderful. Whether it fits perfectly or we make the song fit around you.
You're so nice. Well, I would love playing music with you. I think you're very musical as a person. You can hear things that not everybody can hear. And it seems to come easy to you. I don't know if it does, but it seems to come really easy to you.
I don't know if it does. I hope so. I'm getting better at music, I think, just by listening
You're getting better all the time.
Yeah, I am, by learning from people like you and, all my friends and my lovely colleagues in the music industry here in BC and abroad. And hopefully we both can send our thoughts to them on the wind through your music as well.
Oh, yay!
But I will leave it there with you. Thank you so much for joining me on my podcast. Yeah, have a wonderful day.
You too, and you and your family, beautiful family, stay safe and warm.
We will. What a great interview. That was really fun. I'm really glad you stayed and listened today with me on the Too Much Information Marty Zylstra podcast. Have a wonderful day and keep listening and send me comments and mailbag questions. And make sure you subscribe so you catch all the episodes. And we'll talk to you later. Ciao.